Hello to the pessimistic, optimistic, and everyone in between. My name is Connor Philippi, and welcome back to the Minnesotan Sports Podcast. And if you can't see what I'm repping, it is Twins playoff time. Now, I'd like to backtrack real quick to a video I made near the middle of the season. I was talking about a game that I went to, around my birthday time, and how, based on what I saw in that game, I was convinced that there was nothing that could save the Twins at that point in that season. I made a bad call there, and it was my Twins and Minnesota sports fan pessimism that kind of put me into that hole. But I was proven wrong, at least in the sense that the Twins found a way to make the playoffs. They have been playing much better as of late. It wasn't just because the Guardians could have given us the division. They played so poorly that we probably could have gone, five below 500 and still won the division. But we played like a much better team, and we showed a lot of resolve, and we are now a team to be excited about going into the postseason. Now, does that necessarily mean we're going to win in the first round against the sixth seed? Not necessarily, because we're going up against a Blue Jays team that still has a much better record than us, and that includes them being in a fairly difficult division. This is kind of a weird position to be in because I believe so much more in this Twins team than I did before, but I don't want to get my hopes up too much. That being said, I'm just going to go ahead and say this right now. Even the most pessimistic of us, but it's only 3 days. All right, this is a public service announcement to all the other people out there that want to believe that the Twins are just going to go in there and suck. Maybe they will, but we are in such a pivotal part of the Twins going forward right now. At the end of the day, my message is here. No matter if you're one of the pessimistic fans, the optimistic fans, or, the rest, I would say just cheer your heart out for the Twins for the next few days. Even if we end up losing and it ends up being a lot more disappointing for you, you're going to regret cheering for the Twins much less than you would regret it if you didn't root for the Twins and they ended up winning. You want to be part of this, whether, it's the burden of a Minnesota sports fan specifically. You want to be a part of this. And if you're not a part of this, you're going to regret being a part of this no matter what. So if you can get off work, go cheer on the Twins at the stadium, but still make sure you watch it. And, even if we lose, just know you are a fan and a part of this experience. Speaking of all that important, being an important part of our organization, let's talk about the two reasons why this series is very important. Well, first of all, it's important because every team wants to win a World Series. That's the main point. But the two main reasons why the Twins are at such pressure to do well is, one, this is an impossible streak. Like, I think someone broke down the odds of how impossible it was for us to lose this many playoff games in a row. The chances of us having this big of a playoff streak are astronomically it's crazy. So in order to stop being a laughing stock of the MLB and of pretty much all major league sports, we need to get this done. We are now not even playing the Yankees. We need to at least win a game in the series. If we can win a game at least, then I'll be content in some way. The second reason why it's so important that we win this specific series and move on to the next round is I feel like this front office is in the exact same mindset that a lot of Twins fans have been in for the last however long. I feel like the Twins front office truly believes that any team we put out here is going to continue the streak, that any team, any amalgamation of Twins players, any combination of players that we can throw on this Twins team is not going to be able to get the job done. And maybe they're subconsciously thinking it, maybe they are just outwardly thinking it, but it's hard not to feel that way. It's hard not to feel like this team is legitimately cursed. And the one thing you can do to convince the front office that we are not cursed, that you should make some moves in the trade deadline this upcoming year, or the off season and free agency and making trades in free agency, the one way you can convince the front office to do that is to convince them that you're not cursed and you have to win a playoff series. I think if the Twins can even win one playoff series this year, the front office will start making some more big time moves this offseason And I think if we roll over and lose 2 more in a row and continue the streak, it's gonna make the front office feel like we're just a doomed franchise. And whether they want to admit that we are or not, if that happens, they have no choice but to believe that themselves. And I feel like a lot of people in Twins territory, if they don't already believe that, are going to believe that because this team made us feel a certain way in the last half of the season. And they need to continue making us feel that way in the postseason, or nothing's ever going to change. So, before we get into the matchup, let's just quick talk about the playoff history between these teams. They've only met one time, and it was a very big series that they met in because it was the 1991 ALCS that they met, and the Twins won it 3-1. So they won it pretty convincingly, and that was, of course, the year we went on to win the World Series. If you're a real Twins fan, you should know that. But going into the injury updates now, Correa is supposed to play. He's expected to play, and he's at least confident he can play. He had a full press conference today that was live on YouTube and everything. So I feel like if the Twins wouldn't trot him out for that, whole talk and that whole press conference if they weren't at least hoping and like expecting him to play. I'm not saying that means that he's 100%, but it's hopeful. Royce Lewis, we still don't quite have an update as of me making this video. I'm hoping that by the time it's uploaded or by early tomorrow morning, we'll have some clarity on that because Royce Lewis is such an important factor of this team. I mean, it's going to be a big difference to not have him in the lineup. Dallas Keuchel was now moved to the 15-day injured list. Now, that doesn't mean anything for our starting rosters of our starting rotation, but it does mean something for our bullpen because Keuchel was playing well in our bullpen the last few times he pitched in the bullpen. Buxton, he's uncertain to play again. I don't want Buxton on our playoff roster. I'm going to be completely honest. It's just that even if he was 100%, and even if he was batting well before his injury, I still wouldn't want him in the playoff roster to start off the postseason because I don't care if it was Royce Lewis and he hadn't played for like a full month and a half, I wouldn't want even Royce Lewis to like start out on the opening roster. I mean, it's just, you don't want to have a player on there that just hasn't played in a month and a half and now you're throwing him out there in some of the most pivotal situations. I'm gonna say right now, if Buxton walks out there with a bases loaded situation and 2 outs, I have the least confidence in him out of any player on our entire roster. Keep him out of the postseason, at least for the first series. If we make it onto the next round, see what happens, see if anyone gets injured. But it's just not worth it to throw him out there. As of right now, I think fans would be mad if they started Buxton in the postseason over some of these other players. Because who are you going to take out? You're not going to take out Wallner. You are not going to take out Wallner. He's been hitting the ball too well, and I can't think of anyone else. Michael A. Taylor has been hitting the ball too well. I mean, he also can do anything in the field, which Buxton can't. So many reasons why I wouldn't want Buxton to play, even if he was not injured anymore. And then Polanco was day-to-day. He didn't play in the last game of the regular season. He had an ankle injury. In the postseason or the Instagram videos and pictures that the Twins just recently posted, he was at least warming up with the team, getting ready for the postseason games. So that's at least a good sign, but we'll have to see with him. He's also a very important part of our roster, and hopefully he can play for us. So moving on now to the keys to the series. The Minnesota Twins doubled their batting average with runners in scoring position from the start of the season to after the All-Star break. It was a drastic difference. The question now is, can we do that in high leverage situations? Because the Twins, were hitting well, and then it felt like the Guardians kind of started pulling away from them, and that's when the Twins really stepped on the gas. And so we still have yet to see, can the Twins, with their backs fully against the wall, not just in a regular season game where we're already up by 7 games in the division race, and it doesn't even matter really if we lose or not, in an actual game where if we lose this game, we're out, can this offense produce that same amount? Or are we going to go back to the team in the first half where in any high leverage situation we ground into a double play with the bases loaded? That's not the Carlos Correa that we can get. If he ends up playing, That's not the Carlos Correa that can play if we're going to win. He has to be the Carlos Correa that hits a double into the corner and scores 3 runs. Second key to the series, and the next 3 keys of the series will be all about the starting pitching, because at the end of the day, the Twins starting pitching is going to win or lose this series for them, because we all know the bullpen, like I'm going to talk about in just a second, is not the strength of this team. And much like I hate to say it, the strength of this team is going to have to be the part of the team that holds everything together, because we know the bullpen won't. So the first one is Pablo Lopez is going to be the game 1 starter. He's usually great, and he has had some incredible outings so far this season. The concern is he has a track record of at least occasionally having these games where he gets off to a really bad start, and then he ends up just letting nothing else by him the entire rest of the game. But if Pablo has a 5-run first inning, even if he does pitch great the entire rest of his start, I mean, what's that going to mean for us? Can the offense hit well that far behind? And I feel like we need to be toe-to-toe with the Blue Jays in this series. Otherwise, I feel like they're going to take all the momentum away from us. So is Pablo going to be able to pitch well at the beginning of the game and then prolong that and only give up a couple runs throughout the rest of this? Or is he going to be that version of Pablo that has just a really rough first inning? Because whether he coasts through the rest of it or not, I'm just not confident that we can come back from something like that. Secondly, how deep is Sonny Gray going to be able to go in games? We've seen it so often throughout the season where Sonny Gray pitches phenomenally, but he only gives us 5 innings, maybe sometimes even 4. And so Sonny Gray is going to have to go 6 innings in his start. Some of it's on Gray, a lot of it is on Rocco. Is Rocco going to trust Sonny Gray, understanding what we have in our bullpen, and we do have some good arms in our bullpen, but understanding that Gray is a better risk to take in throwing him out there a little bit longer than going to our bullpen early. We'll see if Rocco has the guts to keep him in, or if he's going to do the same thing he's done all season long. And I personally don't feel like Gray's going to be back next offseason, but it'll go a long way to let Gray pitch as long as he feels like he's comfortable pitching and not taking him out early. It's going to go a long way towards keeping him next season. And I just have this image in my mind of Rocco coming out in the 5th inning of a game where Gray's pitching pretty well and he takes him out, and then we end up losing the game. If that happens, Gray's not coming back. And I would be very mad at Rocco too for letting that happen. Fourth, will Joe Ryan get shelled against this Blue Jays team? I really hope not. And Joe Ryan had a couple good outings after he had to take that time on the injured list when Dallas Keuchel came in relief of him, and he came back. He actually pitched better after that, but he still is giving up way too many long balls. And he did give up a lot of long balls in the last game he pitched against the Rockies, but it's Colorado, so it's hard to really gauge that. But this is a very powerful Blue Jays team. You know, you've got Guerrero, you got Springer, and I mean, I'm very concerned about Ryan, and hopefully the Twins can just win 2 games and he doesn't have to play against this Blue Jays team. But if we go to a game 3, I'm just really scared that the Blue Jays are going to hit home runs all over the place. So can Joe Ryan keep that to a minimum? That's also going to be a very key factor. Finally, let's talk about the bullpen. I mean, this is a bullpen that has been giving up a lot of games so far this year, and we don't yet have the full, complete roster of all the bullpen pitchers that are going to be playing. But you know, you've got your mainstays. I'm hoping that we can have the bulk of our bullpen in there, and it's just you got Duran, but then after Duran you've got like Griffin Jackson. You're like, I don't know about him. You know, he has some really good outings, and then he will just single-handedly give up a game for us. And I don't know if I want that in the most dire situations. You've got Pagan, who's actually been pitching better in the last half of the season, but then you also just kind of have that vision in your mind of, again, when runners are in position, he just plays horribly. When runners are not in position and he has the bases clear, he's honestly a really good pitcher, but you aren't always going to have that luxury with him. And then you keep going down the list of all these different players. And you're like, man, I don't trust any of these guys besides Duran, and any of the other guys that we trust are barely coming in after injury. And it's just, there's a lot of question marks with the bullpen. So that's why I feel like the starting pitching is going to be just the key. I mean, it's really the key. If the starting pitchers can perform as well as they did all season long, only give up a run or two after 6 innings, hopefully our offense can hold down the fort and score enough runs where the bullpen doesn't blow it for us. So those are the main keys, and that leads us to the prediction for the series. And I know I was talking about how we need to get loud, support the Twins, and I'm still fully, advocating for that. That doesn't mean I can't still be realistic in my prediction, where I do have the Blue Jays winning. I think that we're going to win the first game. Think that we're a shoo-in for the series win, but I think the Blue Jays will win the second game after some, frustrating exchange between Baldelli and Sonny Gray. He'll go storming off in a huff. The bullpen will proceed to lose the game. That's just my vision, at least. And then I think that Joe Ryan will struggle against the Blue Jays and give up a lot of home runs, and we will lose game 3. That being said, let's try and believe as much as we can. Let's cheer on the Twins, and I'm going to be rooting for them wholeheartedly, even with me predicting that they'll lose. There are so many ways that this team can win. I mean, you see Pablo Lopez, he could put up a fantastic start, and then you have Sonny Gray. I mean, he could go pretty deep into a game. It's just a matter of will Rocco let him or not. And Joe Ryan also still has really good games. It's just a matter of he's not as consistent as the other ones, and I don't trust him quite as much. So if he has one of his better games, we could win it in game 3. So many ways the Twins could win. I just realistically feel like the Blue Jays are a better team. But let me know what you think in the comments, your predictions for this matchup. I hope we at least can break the streak, and if we break the streak, I'm going to be rooting for the Twins to make it to their first, or I guess it wouldn't be their first ALDS in a long time because the rules change, but you know what I mean, moving on from the first round of whatever playoff they're in to the next round for the first time since, 2002? So we'll see what happens, but again, thanks so much for watching this one. Of course, it's kind of a rushed video because you find out who they're playing, and then literally the next day they're playing the series, so sorry if this is getting to everyone late, but it's just the way it is. So thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the flip side.